welcome back to Battlefront updates and a bit of a speculation video, I guess we could say, because in this video I wanted to talk about 40 potential Imperial skins, as we obviously get the Scarif update this month that could potentially contain some Imperial skins. Most of this is basically just wishful thinking, as they haven't really confirmed any skins other than hero and villain skins, but nevertheless it's fun to speculate and maybe give the developers some ideas of what they could add. So first of all, a huge shout out to Sam, who actually compiled this list of skins, both with some interesting information about them and making these really nice concept art pictures here that I will be showing throughout the video. So I thought it was really nice to actually show that the Imperials do have more skins than we might imagine, and some of the skins, sure, they might stand out a little bit too much and be too confusing for some of the classes, but I'd nevertheless think that all of them fit to some degree to the various classes. So let's dive straight into it, starting off with the Assault class. And obviously the default one is the Stormtrooper, shown in pretty much every movie, well, obviously not the sequel trilogy, but almost every movie. And the Stormtrooper armor actually varies in all of the films. The armor and helmets are slightly different in each film, and the helmets in Battlefront 2 are based on a mold for a helmet from Return of the Jedi. As for another skin, SNOWTROOPER, that appears in Empire Strikes Back, which is also known as the Cold Weather Assault Stormtroopers. And the point here is that all of these 10 could be selectable so that you can choose whether you want a Snowtrooper on like Yavin, although it doesn't fit, but that's what I like about skins. You can make, well, basically you choose whatever you want, even if it doesn't really fit in canonically. And moving on, we have the Commander, which appears in both Fallen Order, Rebels, and Rogue One, and A New Hope. And the commanders who appear in A New Hope are SANDTROOPERs and not normal Stormtrooper commanders. And we kind of had this in the first Battlefront game, where you could select the orange Pauljohn, but that wasn't a specific commander skin as far as I remember, but it was more of a, okay, you can select the different Pauljohns and colors that you want on them. And then we have the Commander Red, which appears in Star Wars Rebels, and the commanders with a red Pauljohn is less common than with an orange Pauljohn, and the red Pauljohn have appeared in an episode of Star Wars Rebels, and it was also a skin that you could wear in Battlefront 2015. And then we have both the Sergeant and Enlisted, which is basically a white and a black Pauljohn. Both appears in Star Wars Rebels and not in any other material as far as I know, but it's still a skin that I think could fit. I mean, basically the Commander, and Sergeant and Enlisted are just different versions of the Pauljohn, but I don't see why they couldn't be separate skins nevertheless. Then we have the TIE Fighter Pilot, which appears in Solo, Rebels, Rogue One, A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. That is a little bit different as an Assault skin, and I'm not sure if it would be too, I guess, confusing to have it on the Assault class, but why not? I'm all for more skins. Then the Shore Trooper that appears in Rogue One obviously would fit perfectly to add together with the Scarif update, but they're also known as Coastal Defender Stormtroopers, and there were 3 variants of them: the normal Shore Trooper, the Shore Trooper Squad Leader, and the Shore Trooper Captain. Moving on to another trooper that appeared in Rogue One, the Tank Trooper, that was also known as the Combat Assault Tank Pilots. This could most definitely work as an Assault class as well. And then we have the Shock Trooper that shows up in Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith, and was actually a prominently featured trooper in Battlefront 2015. And lastly, for the Assault class, we have the TIE Advanced Pilot, which also appeared in Star Wars Rebels. Baron Ruder was seen wearing the TIE Fighter pilot armor with the red stripes in an episode of Star Wars Rebels, but there's actually no currently canon name for the specific armor, but since he was flying a TIE Advanced V1 model, the TIE Advanced Pilot is a fitting name. And if we then move over to the Heavy class, the default could be the Enlisted that appears in A New Hope on Tatooine, followed by the Heavy Snowtrooper, which already exists in Battlefront 2 as an original character, and I don't think it's appeared in any other material. And then for the SANDTROOPER Commander, it's obviously the one that appears in A New Hope on Tatooine, but the SANDTROOPER in Battlefront 2 has a more weathered and sandy armor in comparison to the other Stormtrooper armors, and the helmet is also different from the rest of the Stormtrooper helmets in the game. The SANDTROOPER helmet is based on a mold of a helmet used in A New Hope, while all the other Stormtroopers are based on a mold from Return of the Jedi. And then a potential Heavy Red Commander, which hasn't appeared in any canon material but is likely to exist. The Sergeant with the white Pauljohn for the Heavy appears in Star Wars A New Hope on Tatooine and could definitely be a fitting skin for the heavy class. And then moving on to the Death Star Gunner, which you can see in Rebels, Rogue One, A New Hope, and Return of the Jedi. And with some slight modifications, I think it could work very well as a heavy skin. You definitely need a specific like heavy traits on the armor that you currently have, so that you can easily spot which class is which, despite having very different skin if you compare like a Stormtrooper to a Death Star Gunner. But again, the Death Star Gunner is one of the skins that I don't think is very likely to ever arrive, but if it does, I won't complain. Then the AT-ACT driver, another skin that popped up in Rogue One. As you can see, a lot of the new skins are from a Rogue One and Rebels, but yeah, a driver that could definitely fit for the heavy class as well. A lot of the skins, just to clarify, could probably fit for all classes, but it's a matter of picking which one it fits the best with, / modifying it to actually fit for that class, since because of, again, the unique traits that each of the classes have. And then we'll have the Tank Trooper Commander, also from a Rogue One, that we can see on Jedha, as well as on Star Wars Rebels on Lothal, and also known as the Combat Assault Tank Commander, also a worthy skin for the heavy class. As well as the Heavy Shock Trooper, basically just a Shock Trooper with a heavy modification. It's not canon as of yet, but this image comes from a mod by Motlu, but still definitely see no reason to why it couldn't exist. Battlefront 2 has already introduced a lot of new troopers that have not been canon previously. And then we have the AT-AT driver, as seen in Empire Strikes Back, Rebels, and Jedi Fallen Order, with a bit more beefy gear, and that therefore could definitely work as a heavy trooper. And lastly, for the heavy class, as the 10th skin, the Interdictor Gunner appears in Star Wars Rebels, also known as the Imperial Weapons Technician. That is a Imperial gunner operating on the vessel, the Imperial Interdictor in Rebels. It's pretty similar to some of the troopers we see on the Death Star, but I definitely think it would be a nice addition to the heavy class nevertheless. Moving on to the officer class, there is quite a lot of skins that could fit here. The default armor being the field armor that is currently in the game, as well as a Navy officer that appears in most of the movies that the Empire are present. But moving on then to we have the Stormtrooper Corps, which appears in A New Hope. A lot of these skins are very similar, but with basically a different color on the hats or actual suit. And then we have the Medic Commander as shown in A New Hope. And a fun fact about the Medic Commander is that he just walked past the camera once. You can barely see him, but he's still there and he is canon, so why not choose him as a skin? And then the ISB Officer and Technician, both seen in A New Hope. Similar hats, different outfits, but they definitely do look like officers to me. And then the Death Star Trooper as shown in Rogue One, A New Hope, and Return of the Jedi. This one I think could fit as an officer, but it could probably also work on some of the other classes depending on how you modify the skin, but with that pistol at least and that specific outfit, I think it most likely fits on the officer. And then we got some armored officers, such as the Shore Trooper Captain that appears in Rogue One, also known in the Coastal Defender. This could become a bit confusing since it's obviously very similar to the other Shore Trooper skins, just that this is the captain with like the red band around the arm and so on. So I'm not convinced if this could work, if it would be too confusing. But that's not really a big problem in my opinion. People will get used to it, and if it's a bit confusing, well, so what? It's not the end of the world if you don't know exactly which class that is killing you. Yeah, it could be a bit confusing with the Shore Trooper skins, but why not? And then we've got a bit of a different skin, the Transport Pilot that appears in Star Wars Secrets of the Empire on Mustafar. And Star Wars Secrets of the Empire is a VR experience, and the experience puts guests in the boots of rebel operatives who must infiltrate an Imperial facility on Mustafar while disguised as stormtroopers. So it wouldn't surprise me if you've not seen that skin before, as well, I hadn't. But it could definitely be an interesting one for the officer, as it's quite different from pretty much all other Imperial armor, which is a bit strange, but why not? And then we've got the officer coat, which appears in Rogue One on Jedha. Basically it's an officer in a bit of a cold weather, I guess, with an extra coat on top. Why not? Anything to expand the skin roster, in my opinion. And then lastly, the AT-ST driver that we can see in Fallen Order and Return of the Jedi. A bit similar to the Death Star Trooper, but with its pretty light armor and that open helmet, I think that it could fit pretty nicely for the officer class. And then lastly, we've got the Specialist class. With some of my favorite skins or skin suggestions so far. Starting off with the default Scout Trooper skin that appears in Empire Strikes Back and Star Wars Rebels, and then the commander that actually shows up in Jedi Fallen Order, for those of you who played it, basically a scout trooper with the Pauljohn on. And another suggestion for that would be a commander with the red Pauljohn. Not canon, but is likely to exist. For me, the whole scout trooper helmet basically makes it very easy to spot that it's a specialist, and then you can modify the rest of the armor to make some unique skins. And then both the Sergeant and Enlisted skins, which is again the Scout Trooper helmet with a white or black Pauljohn, not canon but is likely to exist. And again, Battlefront 2 has already introduced a lot of other troopers to canon material, so why not? And then something that is probably one of my favorite suggestions here, the Storm Commando, a full blackout Scout Trooper. This appears in Rogue One, but with the helmet only, so we're not entirely sure if the full set is black, but it feels like if the helmet is black, the rest of the armor is probably black. And Storm Commandos were the special forces of the Galactic Empire's Stormtrooper Corps and trained to deal with extreme combat situations. I really wish we would have seen more of them and not just a helmet, but I would love to see that as a specialist skin, and it's probably the one out of all of these 40 that I would most like to see in the game. And then we have the Shore Trooper Squad Leader, again very similar to the Shore Trooper Captain, and therefore could be slightly confusing, but still could fit as one of the skins. And then another pretty unique skin is the Ground Crew skin that we can see both in Solo on Mimban and Rogue One on Scarif. For me, this looks a bit like a melee skin, and I'm not sure if it fits the best on the Specialist or on like the Assault, but nevertheless I would love to see him on one of the two classes or in the game overall. And then we have the Scout Shock Trooper. This is not canon. This image is from a mod to Battlefront 2 by Rupture 13, and although it's not canon, the first Imperial Shock Trooper was made canon in Battlefront 1, so I don't see why they couldn't make the Scout Shock Trooper canon through Battlefront 2. And as for the last two Imperial Specialist skins, we have the ATDP pilot as well as the ITT pilot, both that appears in Star Wars Rebels. And they're again a skin that could potentially fit more on the officer class, but that are still very unique and therefore could probably work in the game. So as you can see, there's actually more potential Imperial skins than you might imagine. I know some of them might be a little bit daunting and might make, well, take away from the theme that we currently have around the Imperial skins, which might confuse people, especially if you throw all of these 40 in there at the same time, which I don't think will happen. Again, I don't even know if they're going to add any more Imperial skins at all, but these are some suggestions, and if they just added 2 to each class out of this list, I'd be very happy, but please give me that Storm Commando. I really want to see a full Storm Commando outfit on the Specialist. It sucks that we only saw the helmet in a Rogue One. Again, thank you very much to Sam for creating this full list. I would love to hear your thoughts. Which one of these do you think could work, would not work, and which one would you most like to see in the game if they were to add some Imperial skins, so that we get some more variety on the Imperial side in Battlefront 2. But yeah, that brings this video to an end. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, may the Force be with you.